Will we play? When will we play? And what is it going to look like? We got Tony Siracusa on the line from Last Word on College Football. He took part in the Pac-12 Digital Coaches Sessions. And I am fascinated to hear, now that I've read most of your article, Tony, what you took away from what the coaches had to say. But we will state right out of the gate, as I have a number of times, and we discussed it before we started to record, the coaches are a great source for perspective, but they're not going to make the decision. And I think we can start right there.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, good to be with you as always. And that's completely true. I think one of the things, we're seeing a lot, I think the coaches are good for headlines, right? And for getting the perspective, as you said, but also for the headlines for the writers. Dabo Sweeney says we're going to play because he's got faith in America, and Butch Davis says this, and, Brian Kelly says this, and so on and so forth. And what's clear is stop asking the coaches, because they don't know if we're going to play or not. They're going to have a say in the process. And when I say that, I mean, the athletic director at their school will listen to what they want to, talk about with regards to playing. But it's going to be the athletic directors, the school chancellors and presidents, and the commissioners of the conferences that will determine that. The coaches won't. And to that point, Chip Kelly, ironically enough, had one of the lines of the entire week, which is, we don't know what we don't know. Meaning, look, there's a lot of conjecture. There are a lot of thoughts. There clearly are plans being put in place, and a plan within a plan within a plan. But we're sitting here in mid-May, and there's time and there's room to make final determinations. If you listen to these coaches, and all of them have been in meetings within the conference and on a national level, they made that clear. They have talked in large part to the NCAA and to the commissioners on conference calls where all the coaches have been on. And from their perspective, there are certain things they need in order to be able to play. How that comes out, what it looks like on a calendar, in terms of how many weeks, in terms of when it starts, that's still very much a work in progress. Herm Edwards said, look, I do this with coaching, and we're doing it here. You have to have a plan, and that plan has to have a backup plan, and the backup plan has to have a backup plan. Otherwise, you don't really have a plan. You don't have anything. You're just making it up. And so I think that's really where they are right now. Is there's the idea that they are going to play. And their coaches, they're all glass half full kind of guys. They're all optimists. They all want to play. I think some of them are a little bit more skeptical than others. A guy like Justin Wilcox at Cal is convinced they're going to play. It's just, what will that look like? And it's a matter of, will some of the conferences start on their own because their states are ready and open, and others are less so? Or is everybody willing to wait a few weeks and get everybody off on the same path in the same way? And if you do that, you're probably looking at a schedule that will either lower or wipe out of conference games. And you'll play conference games, but you'll still, if you do that, you'll still be able to maintain the bowl games and the playoff schedule. What Wilcox said is, we're starting with an assumption of, we start on time, 12 games all the way through, but then we look at how the states are doing, the counties are reacting, what the health officials are saying. There is a medical team from the NCAA that is involved in all of these conversations also as guidance. So it's not just a football conversation. And he said, and then you start to chip away and alter from there. So you start with the full pie, and then you kind of start to cut corners and move things around and see where that gets you.
And Tony, one thing that has seemed to have had happen because of the weight that the coaches have in the marketplace among the fan bases is, when the coaches speak, then the fans listen, and they take that as, is that Dabo Sweeney, as you mentioned, is spoken out. So people have attached that to the ACC. Well, the ACC is going to play, or a couple coaches, and we know the mentality or the perceived mentality of the SEC, for example. So sure, they're going to play. Well, sure, as soon as knowing what the California guidelines are, and that there would be a continued 3-month, I don't want to call it a lockdown or a shutdown, but limitation on goods and services to a certain extent, and movement in California. And then what was determined that extended to the colleges, then that ran like wildfire to the Pac-12 is going to be the last one in play. They're going to shut down. There might, I've actually heard crazy things like certain teams from the Pac-12 are going to move to other conferences and all sorts of things.
Yeah, it was a bizarre 48 hours to be a Californian. It was an even greater bizarre time to be a Californian who covers college football, because it went crazy. But you bring up a great point. Look, the county director of health said we're going to have and a lockdown is fine. Let's call it a lockdown. We're going to have a lockdown for 3 more months. Well, okay, and that was headlines everywhere, all the national media, because it was the easy headline to write. Okay, well, one, that's not really what she said. She's really bad at doing this, by the way. She's really bad at handling media. She would never survive on MarkRogersTV. She said we're going to have some form of one for the foreseeable future, meaning down there we're still going to be guarded for the elderly and the vulnerable and the people with health issues. But as you and I sit here speaking, they're opening the beaches for surfing, right? And for exercise and jogging along the beach. They are starting to open retail stores in LA County. So what they're doing is they're looking at it basically every week to 2 weeks. We're going to open a little bit more. What do the numbers look like after that? Can we open a little bit more? Or do we need to stay pat? Whatever the case may be. So when that happened, there was a certain sports broadcaster whose name I won't put out there, who has a TV and radio show, who immediately put out that Alabama was canceling their game with USC because USC was not going to be able to play. So I called some contacts at USC and they were like, that's ridiculous. The truth is Alabama did contact USC and say, we want to let you know that because of the uncertainty on your end, which seems to be more uncertain than it is on our end, we want to at least contact another school as a potential backup for that game, just in case. No one has canceled the Alabama USC game. Could it be canceled? Sure. Why not? Anything is possible. You and I both know our lives are changing 1 week to the next. So is everybody else's. But that story was nonsense. On that same day, the California State University schools announced that they were going to go into mostly online learning for the fall semester of the upcoming academic year. Now, for your national audience, we need to be clear about something. There are 2 state school systems in California. What happened was the headline was California's state schools are closing down. They're all going online. Again, not accurate. There are 2 systems. There's the California State University system. Full disclosure, I am a graduate of the California State University system, Northridge, go Matadors. Football doormat when I was there, and then just dropped football. But for football purposes, we're talking about Fresno State, San Diego State, San Jose State. That's really the only relevance you got to deal with there. All right. The other system is the University of California system, which for our purposes, we're talking about Cal and UCLA. All right. UC Davis, if you really want to dig deep. But the California State University schools at the bottom of it all did not announce that they're going completely online. They're going mostly online, but there are still classes in performing arts. You can't be a performing arts major if it's only online. It doesn't work. But they were talking about agriculture, architecture, engineering, health sciences. All of the lab classes that people need will still be in person. There will be limited on-campus housing. Well, they're all commuter schools anyway. These schools generally are anywhere between 30 to 45,000 undergrads, with maybe about 2% living on campus. So the fact that it's limited on-campus housing anyway doesn't change that much. Frankly, if you take a look at it, as we sit here and I guess they're probably done with the spring semester, there are going to be more students on campus in the fall than there have been for the last 3 months during the shutdown. Now, the question is that enough to play football? The Mountain West Conference originally said we want full campuses, full schools, or no. The Mountain West commissioner then also said, Craig Thompson also at one point said, we also recognize that without football, we start cutting a lot of other sports because we can't afford them anymore without football. We start cutting non-revenue sports. So they loosened that up. So will San Diego State, Fresno State, San Jose State play football? It is TBD. This Cal State school issue did not cancel football in any capacity yet. As a matter of fact, UCLA is scheduled to play San Diego State in week 3. And Chip Kelly said, as far as I know, if our schedule still goes forward, we still are. The University of California schools, which are 10 campuses, and ironically enough, most of 8 of them are on the quarter system, which means they don't start till the end of September anyway, so they have a little bit more time. The University of California system, the board is going to meet within the next, I think, week to 10 days. Their first determination is not open or closed. It's, are we going to make one whole decision for the entire system, or are we going to let the schools decide based on what their counties and municipalities are doing? There are a few schools in the UC system that I know of that are actually putting forth a proposal that will allow the incoming freshmen on campus, because they need more of that direct learning as you make the transition to college. And that would also allow the athletes of any class, freshman, junior, senior, whatever, to also be on campus. There's enough on-campus living space that if that's what you have, you can spread everybody out and be safe and have room for everybody. So those determinations are still to be made. So contrary to popular belief, the state of California has not canceled college football. The Pac-12 has not canceled football. They've got a little bit of a challenge up in Oregon because the governor up there, when she was asked about football, was pretty dismissive about it and kind of even laughed. And Jonathan Smith, the Oregon State coach, said, I had a hard time with that, because this is a passion for a lot of people, not just from the sports standpoint, but the businesses in the Corvallis community that rely on there being football crowds. We take it seriously. So he said, I certainly was not laughing, but as David Shaw and a couple others said, the virus and the doctors will determine when we get to play.
Yeah, regardless of what kind of deadlines are put out there or cease to exist, let's all understand that I don't believe that the virus itself is reading our guidelines. So it just does. Things are going to be back to normal on June 1st because the Big Ten says it will, or whatever. Right. So that's not in play. One of the key things that I think you stated, because one of the common questions that's asked of me is, who controls all this? Who will be the final decision maker? So the 3 entities that you brought into play, I think, are the determining factor. Now, in what order, I don't know, but of course, the government, first and foremost, of that municipality or the state government, and then obviously the conference, and then the school itself.
You notice who you left out of the conversation as to who gets a say in it? The NCAA.
Yes.
It was interesting because Jimmy Lake, the first-year coach at Washington, said, he would love at this point, because of all the confusion, for the NCAA to step in and make a determination of here's when everybody can start, so that it's balanced across the country and across the conferences, and here's how it's going to look. My question to him and to other coaches was, do you have any sense the NCAA has the authority to do that? And you get a bunch of shrugged shoulders, because look, these Power 5 conferences have spent years trying to gain their autonomy from the NCAA. Now you have more autonomy than you've ever had. The COVID-19 virus hits, and we're all making everything up from one day to the next because we don't know. Look, if you look at a COVID map, which I actually did earlier today, of the hot spots, Columbus, Ohio is one of the hot spots in the country right now. No one's asking if Ohio State is going to play football in the fall. They just assume they will. Nashville is one of the hot spots. You just assume the SEC doesn't care if Vandy plays or not, but sorry, no disrespect to Vanderbilt fans, but you get my point. The SEC fans, they're going to be tough guys through this. Virus isn't going to tell us what to do because, we're the SEC and it just means more. But the reality is this is going to change over the coming weeks. And I think the reality is that, of course, everyone's dealing with it differently. Kyle Whittingham at Utah had an interesting point. He said, look, my state's almost completely open at this point. What I'm looking for is my players to be able to go to the weight room, monitor, not all at once, 10 at a time if it has to be, and start getting in some workouts. And I want the conferences to agree that the states that can do that can do that. All the coaches are saying they need 6 to 8 weeks to get a team ready to play. And I think that's pretty much across the country when I've been on other conference calls as well. That can be shortened if the players can start working out on their own a little bit. But clearly the safety of the players is not just in terms of the virus, but in terms of not rushing them back on the field when they're not physically ready, has to be part of the conversation.
Now, I would think that this isn't a worst case scenario, but this is kind of a worst case scenario, assuming that everything's played across the board, would be that the conferences couldn't, because of hotspots versus other levels of severity, and other universities and conferences saying, okay, we're ready to go, and others aren't, that the non-conference schedule would be dismissed, and that at least as long as each conference could determine a viable champion within conference play, then that gets us all the way to the end of the season and bowl season and the college football playoff. And as long as the conferences can determine a champion, and the playoff selection committee can say, okay, well, they've got an 8-game season or a 9-game season. And like I believe was discussed, the Pac-12 just playing a complete Big 12 type of schedule in which everyone, but they don't play anyone out of conference, and they play 11 games all against each other.
Right. Yeah, all of those are possibilities. I think, Justin Wilcox from Cal had pointed out, he said, what we're doing right now is we're looking at the whole pie. The whole pie is we play the season as scheduled, as if nothing happened. And then you start, as you move along in the weeks, again, bearing in mind, we're in mid-May, and everyone really is kind of looking at, we've got about 5 to 6 weeks before we need to start putting the rubber to the road. End of June is when we really, if you're looking at 6 to 8 weeks of training and things like that, end of June is really the ultimate final, we need decisions. They'd like to have them before then, but they understand that, this is a malleable situation. And he said, then you start chipping away at the pie. Okay, what if we wind up not starting for a couple weeks late? Does that mean we cut out the out-of-conference schedule? What does that look like? Because the SEC and the ACC only play 8 conference games. Everybody else playing 9. So how does that work? But exactly to the point you just made, he's like, you can find flexibility and find a way to make it work if you're still getting to a point of a conference champion, still getting to a point of, a playoff format and the bowl games and things like that. Then there are probably ways to make it work. And I think that's the one where I came out of all the coaches, it sounded to me like Wilcox is the most there in terms of thinking, yes, we are going to play. We just don't know what it's going to look like. It may look completely different than anything you've ever seen as a one-off for this season. But, while they're all optimistic because they're college football coaches, that's who they are. They're optimistic guys. He seems to be the most certain in terms of being in these meetings and coming away feeling like we will be able to find a plan somehow.
Well, that 8-5 season and bowl victory has him galvanized and excited about Cal football.
Exactly. Look, they were interesting. I mean, Herm Edwards had an interesting point, which I don't hear people bringing up. He said, I'm going to be consulting with the parents of my players. I want to hear from them, because I think we've gotten into this mentality that the virus, it feeds off older people or sick people. And these are 18 to 22-year-old young bucks who can strap it on and go play. And that may be that statistically, right now, that may be proven true. But Edwards' point was, when I recruited these guys, I made a commitment to their parents that I'm going to look after them. I will make sure they are okay. And he said, that doesn't change now. He said, matter of fact, they need to hear it now more than ever. I want input from them. And it brought up the point that there is a good chance, not just in California or the soft Pac-12, maybe in the tough guy SEC, there are going to be players who wind up saying, hey, you know what, I'm not going out there. I'm not ready for this yet. Based on whatever the circumstances are at that school, that county, that state, whatever. I wouldn't be surprised that there be some players that wind up taking a pass. And I'm not saying the elite stars or whatever. Hey, it could be your backup long snapper. I'm just saying be prepared. It's going to happen.
Well, it's that age-old dilemma of perspective that when there's a 1% or 2% chance of risk, harm, whatever it be, sickness, death, that when it's involves somebody else, it's only 1 or 2%. Right. Oh, when suddenly it involves you and right. You're putting your neck on the line, and there's a 1 or 2% chance.
Right. Hey, one of the media guys I talked to said, if I gave you a bag of 10 M&Ms and told you one of them could kill you, would you eat the 10 bags? Would you eat the bag of M&Ms? You'll let someone else eat it, like you just said.
Only 10%.
But if it's you, well, you know what? That's a little bit of a different story. So look, I give Edwards credit. He's like, I'm going to bring the parents in on these conversations, and to the point of it affects the old guys or the not the players. Hey, look, let's be real about this part of it also. Hey, Alabama fan, Nick Saban is 67 years old, and he's got some gray hairs on his staff as well. It's not just about the players, Mac Brown is 68 years old, and they have assistants on their staff that are old. The head coach, and we have this image that the head coach sleeps in his office all night, every night, and he lives there. These assistant coaches go home to their families and their kids or grandkids or whatever. David Cutcliffe is 65. Kirk Ferentz at Iowa is 64. Herm Edwards himself, he's 66. There is a large number of college football coaches that are 55 and older, and an even larger amount of their assistants that are 55 and older. So we're not just talking about the players and can they play and can they hang. There's the staff, the assistants, the people putting the games together, all of that. There's a lot of people involved.
Tony, SEC officials are meeting on May 22nd to determine whether they're going to open the doors on campus on June 1st. Of course, we've known about meetings going back a few weeks where the College Football Playoff Selection Committee met with the vice president, and more recently, the Power 5 commissioners met with the NFL just to kind of get their ideas and their blueprint and how they're proceeding. Was there anything that came out of these meetings that said, okay, on this date, we're going to let you know the next step or the deadline?
Not yet, and I'll tell you one of the interesting things that happened through this process is Larry Scott kind of walked back a little bit. Larry Scott's good at backtracking. His original plan or his original thoughts 3 weeks ago, we'll say, maybe 4, was campuses have to be open. You got to be dealing with everybody and taking care of everybody. What has happened now, and maybe it was precipitated by what happened with the Cal State schools and the misinformation and misreporting. What is open? What does open mean? Does it mean we have to have everybody on? Because that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen in a lot of schools, across the country. Does it mean just we've got students, we're housing students, the players are safe in there? And Scott on Thursday came back and said, yeah, it doesn't have to be completely open. You have to show that you can accommodate a portion of the student body on campus, that they're safe, that the professors are safe, the staff at the school is safe. You're following all of the state guidelines within your state as to, how to make everybody, fine with their masks and everything else that they've got. You're following all the rules, all the sanitation rules. Then that's probably a good enough model to be prepared to talk about moving forward, and moving forward for some of these coaches, we've talked about the Pac-12 coaches before. Think about if you're Carl Durrell, you were hired really late in the process. because Mel Tucker took that job at Michigan State. Karl Dorrell has not met his players yet, personally. He got on campus, hired his staff, and then the school was shut down. And then he got a 10% pay cut the week after that to help the athletic department with their budget woes. Welcome back to college football, Karl Dorrell. The only way he's even met his players is on chats like this. Nick Rolovich at Washington State comes over from Hawaii, has 1 week of camp. The state is shut down. He told me, he said, man, I have looked over that 1 week of camp, the tape of that so much. I know every moment on that tape, burned into my brain. A lot of these guys have new coordinators, and it's not just in the Pac-12. It's new coaches anywhere. They've got new coordinators who don't even know what they have right now on their football team. They either had no camp or at the very most 2 weeks. At the very most, they don't even know what they've got right now with the new coordinators looking at how to put a team together. So that 6 to 8 weeks is pretty significant.
So you see on the banner right there, folks, last word on college football. The article is Pac-12 season. Everything is on the table. Tony Siracusa joining us to break down what was discussed this week among Pac-12 coaches. Tony, we appreciate you stopping by, setting us straight on a number of topics involving this entire situation and what we could anticipate moving forward.
Glad to do it, Mark.